A good Erev Shabbos and welcome to Judaism Today. We know how horrible machlokas is in this week's parsha, but the truth is the Mishnah says there's a positive expression of machlokas, which is the machlokas of Hillel and Shammai, which means some machlokas is bad and some machlokas is good. A machlokas, as the Mishnah says, which is not for the sake of heaven, like Korach, which for self-aggrandizement, that's problematic. A machlokas like Hillel and Shammai, the famous Tanoim who debated about very important matters of Jewish law in the Mishnah, their machlokas was for the sake of heaven, trying to bring out God's will, not at each other's throats. That is something that is positive. And the truth is that perhaps if we look at a different word that we're all familiar with, it'll help us understand exactly why. The word shalom means peace, but it also is God's name. And this is the opposite of machlokas. Machlokas is the destruction of peace, and shalom is the creation of peace. It also is God's name, which is remarkable. It also means complete, right? So we know this word shalom has three meanings. It means complete, it means peace, and it means God's name, which is an amazing idea. Somehow there's a connection between the three. And I think the concept is that shalom means when you take two things that are separate, you put them together, and through the two things working together in a proactive, positive way, they complete each other, they complement each other, and they ultimately bring out God's name. This is what a machlokas l'shem shomayim is about. Whereas a machlokas, which is not for the sake of heaven, creates fragmentation, discord, and disunity. A machlokas that's for the sake of heaven brings out two different aspects of what God wants. Hillel had one perspective, Shammai had a different perspective, and between the two of them, in the harmonizing of their views, ultimate godliness and completion emerges. We're about to go into Shabbos. That's what Shabbos is all about. What do we say on Shabbos? We say Shabbat, Shalom. We say it should be a Shabbos of peace. On Shabbos, there's a special blessing. Hapori Sukkah Shalom Aleinu. God should extend His canopy of peace on us. This concept of peace is closely associated with Shabbos. How do we understand it? The answer is it's one and the same. Because on Shabbos, we unite the physical and the spiritual. What perhaps might seem at odds during the week, which is and almost disunified, that the physical is pulling me here and the spiritual is pulling me there, on Shabbos, they're unified. We unify the spiritual worlds on Shabbos with the physical world. Yismechu b'malchuscha, such that the world can rejoice in God's kingship, and that God's spirituality can flow. If you ever recite the prayer Kegavna for the Nusach Sfar daveners out here, this is what it's talking about. That there's a unification of God in this world, and the spirituality flows into this world. That's what Shabbat Shalom means. That's what the peace that inheres in Shabbos is, because through the unification of this world with the spiritual worlds, which occurs on Shabbos, through the completion of the things which look at their surface as disparate but really can be unified, that's how God's presence is brought down into this world. It's a machlokas l'shem shomayim, so to speak. And this is why Shabbos is so holy and so special. It's the opposite of Korach's machlokas, because the machlokas l'shem shomayim is when we take two disparate parts, we unite them, Raza de'echad, and in so doing, we bring the holiness of Shabbos into this world, and the entire world is elevated. Have a phenomenal Shabbos. I hope you enjoyed that episode of Judaism Today. If you did, please make sure to follow us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, or check into our podcast wherever podcasts are listened to, and we look forward to hearing from you more.